Right now, a man is sitting in a Spokane County jail cell on a $1 million bond, accused of deliberately starting the wildfire that destroyed 640 homes and forced 67,000 people to run for their lives. And here's the part that's almost hard to believe. While that fire was burning through neighborhoods, the aircraft dropping water and retardant from above were repeatedly forced to stop flying. Not because of weather, not because of smoke, because civilians kept flying drones into the fire zone at least 26 times. Every single time, fire officials had no choice but to pull their air tankers and helicopters back, because if a drone hits an aircraft, the aircraft comes down. This is the story of a disaster that, according to authorities, didn't have to happen at all, and of the people whose choices, one accused of starting it and others accused of hampering the fight against it, turned a wildfire into a catastrophe. What we know about the arrest. On Saturday, August 1st, the Old Trails fire broke out on the West Plains, northwest of downtown Spokane, driven by 35 to 50 miles per hour winds and single-digit humidity. It jumped the Spokane River, pushed into the city, and tore through the Indian Trail and 5 Mile Prairie neighborhoods, ultimately destroying 640 structures, the most destructive of 3 fires that together leveled more than 700 buildings and forced roughly 67,000 people to evacuate. The mayor called it the worst natural disaster the region has ever faced. 2 days later, the story changed shape. According to Spokane County Sheriff John Nowles, a community member reported seeing a nervous-looking man crouched by the roadside near grass in the area where the fire is believed to have started. That tip led authorities to a 37-year-old Spokane man named Aaron Fenerace. They questioned him and initially released him, but the investigation continued, and on Monday, August 3rd, he was arrested and booked on suspicion of first-degree arson. His bond was set at $1 million. That sequence, questioned, released, then rearrested, tells you something about how these cases get built. Arson is one of the hardest crimes to prove, since the evidence is largely consumed by the fire itself. Investigators work backward from the point of origin: burn patterns, ignition sources, witness accounts, timelines. The gap between his release and rearrest suggests the sheriff's office spent that time gathering more before booking him. What that additional evidence is, we don't yet know publicly. First-degree arson is the most serious arson charge that exists, used when a fire is set in a way that knowingly endangers human life. Here's where it's important to hold the line carefully. An arrest is not a conviction, and a charge is not proof. Fenerace is accused, he has not been tried, and under the law, he's presumed innocent until that happens. What we can say factually is that authorities believe the Old Trails fire, the biggest of the 3, the one that took the 640 homes, was not an accident of nature, and they've charged someone with starting it. Authorities have not stated a cause for the other 2 fires. Why one word changes the whole story. Sit with why arson reframes this entire disaster. Up until that arrest, Spokane was a tragedy, a terrible convergence of drought, wind, and dry fuel, an act of nature no one could be blamed for. An arson allegation turns it into something else. If the accusation is true, every one of those 640 homes, every one of the 67,000 evacuees, traces back to a decision a person made. Not lightning, not a downed power line, a choice. There's a couple, Daniel and Miriam Sims, both in their 70s, who came back Monday to the ruins of the home they'd lived in since 2005. Standing in the wreckage, Miriam said there was nothing left to save. Her husband asked the question a lot of older residents are asking right now: at our age, do we want to rebuild? If the fire was an act of nature, that's a heartbreaking question with no villain. If it was set on purpose, that same question now has a person at the end of it. The drones, 26 windows where the fire ran unchecked. But the accused arsonist is only half of why this fire became so destructive. The other half happened in the sky, involving people who almost certainly meant no harm at all. While the fires burned at their worst, unauthorized drones flew into restricted airspace over the fire zone at least 26 times. Air tankers and helicopters fly low, sometimes just above the treetops, through smoke, at high speed. A drone in that airspace is a collision waiting to happen, one that could kill a flight crew and take out an aircraft the entire firefight depends on. So the rule is absolute. Any unauthorized drone sighting grounds every aircraft until the airspace is confirmed clear. And grounding isn't instant on, instant off. Crews divert, sometimes return to base, and wait until officials are confident it's genuinely safe before resuming low-level drops. A single sighting can cost the better part of an hour of aerial firefighting during the fire's most aggressive window. Multiply that by 26 during the exact stretch Spokane's neighborhoods were burning, and you start to grasp how much unchecked fire growth those incursions may have allowed. The people flying those drones almost certainly weren't trying to help the fire. Most incursions come from spectators and hobbyists chasing a dramatic shot. But intention doesn't change the outcome. The National Interagency Fire Center runs an entire public campaign around this, with a slogan that says everything in 4 words: if you fly, we can't. It's also a federal crime, punishable by up to a year in prison and civil penalties of $20,000 or more. California has already arrested hobbyists for exactly this, including one man tracked down after posting his own drone footage online. So in Spokane, you have one person allegedly accused of starting the fire and dozens of others whose choices, careless rather than criminal, kept grounding the aircraft trying to put it out. A disaster made worse from 2 directions at once. Why this isn't just a Spokane story? Neither of these problems is unique to Spokane, which is exactly why it matters wherever you live. Wildfire arson is more common than most people realize. The 2024 Park Fire, California's largest that year at over 429,000 acres and 700 structures destroyed, was allegedly started by a man pushing a burning car into a dry gully. When a landscape is primed to burn, it doesn't take much. A spark, a match, a rolling car can level a city. That's the fragility of a Western summer. The drone problem is exploding for the same reason it's everywhere. Drones are cheap and common, and every major fire draws them. If you live anywhere on the edge of dry grass or brush, a single ignition on a windy day can become an evacuation order for your street, and the aircraft fighting that fire can only do their job if the airspace stays clear. There's one simple thing you can do. If you ever see a drone near a wildfire, call 911, and never fly one yourself anywhere near a fire. Where things stand right now. As of this recording, the 3 Spokane fires, Old Trails, Fairview, and Autumn Lane, had burned roughly 16 square miles and remained completely uncontained. More than 1,000 firefighters, many from out of state, had arrived, with that number expected to double. Calmer winds gave crews a brief window, but forecasters warned it would turn hot and dry again by midweek. Smoke covered nearly the entire state and was expected to linger for days. This is being called the Pacific Northwest's worst fire season in more than 30 years. There's still been no confirmed loss of life, which in a fire that destroyed 700 buildings remains close to miraculous. Aaron Fenneracci remains in custody, and his case will now move through the courts. Authorities are still investigating the cause of the other 2 fires, meaning this story isn't finished. The thread to leave you with. For 2 days, Spokane was a natural disaster, something that happened to a city. Then an arrest turned it into something a person is accused of doing to a city, with a quieter scandal running underneath it the whole time. Aircraft grounded again and again, not by nature, but by people who wanted a better view. The 640 homes are gone either way. The 67,000 people evacuated either way. What the arrest and the drones add is the hardest part to sit with. The growing sense that the worst of this may not have been the weather at all. It may have been us. Keep the people of Spokane in mind tonight, the families who lost everything, the crews fighting a fire that's still uncontained, and a couple in their 70s deciding whether they have it in them to rebuild. And if you ever see a drone over a fire, call 911. Take care of each other out there.